Hello and welcome back to this low-level JavaScript series on building a 16-bit virtual machine from scratch. In this episode, we're going to add interrupts to the VM. In the context of a CPU, an interrupt, as the name might imply, is a mechanism that allows running code to be interrupted, either by an external influence like another piece of hardware, or by software in the form of a machine instruction. When an interrupt occurs, the value of the interrupt is used to look up the address of a handler. The addresses of all the different kinds of handlers are stored in a table in memory called the interrupt vector. Execution is switched to the code at this address and then returns to normal upon finding a return from interrupt instruction. You might be wondering what the value in such a system is. Well, there are two primary uses. The first is for responding to events from the outside world immediately. This might be something like a hard drive returning a piece of data, or a timer reaching its end. Older game consoles, whose games were much closer to the metal, also made heavy use of interrupts. For example, when the console needed to draw a frame of image data to the screen, an interrupt would occur disabling access to certain parts of memory. Likewise, at the end of a scan line in a CRT display, where there was a small amount of time before the next line was drawn, an interrupt would occur allowing the game to run some more code before it was time to draw again, potentially altering how the next line is actually drawn. Another common use case is in operating systems, where there is a user space and a kernel space. A program running in user space needs to ask the kernel to do certain things for it, like reading a file or sending data over the network. It can do this by making a system call, and a system call is typically a software interrupt, where there is an agreed upon standard for passing data to the kernel through registers or the stack. The interrupt occurs, allowing the kernel to take over and do some of the work of talking to hardware, and control is returned to user space after the kernel is done. In this VM, which doesn't have any concept of user space versus kernel space, events from the outside world will likely be the most useful. We'll start out by adding the software interrupt and return from interrupt instructions in instructions/meta.js. Interrupt, or int, will take a single literal as its argument, which will be the value used to find the handler address in the interrupt vector table. Return from interrupt, just like return from subroutine, doesn't take any arguments. Next, we'll open up registers.js and we'll add a register called im, which is the interrupt mask. The interrupt mask will be used to selectively ignore or mask certain kinds of interrupts. This can be quite a useful feature for reasons that we'll see in later episodes. In cpu.js, we can add an argument to the constructor for the location of the interrupt vector table in memory, defaulting to hex 1000. Then we can add some properties to the instance. First, the interrupt vector address, then a boolean for whether we're currently inside an interrupt handler. Lastly, we can set the interrupt mask register to have the value FFFF. This is done so that every bit in the 16-bit register is a 1. Our interrupt vector will contain up to 16 entries, and every bit in this mask can be used to enable or disable the interrupt handler at the corresponding index. Now we can implement the software interrupt instruction, and at the same time create a mechanism for externally triggered interrupts. We'll scroll down to the execute method and set up a case for int. First, we'll fetch a 16-bit value from memory for the interrupt value. This is a fairly wasteful operation, since we're going to end up throwing away 12 bits of data, since there are only 16 possible entries in the interrupt vector. But it can be optimized later with a new instruction format that only takes a single byte as its argument. Next, we can call the yetUnwritten this.handleInterrupt method with the interrupt value, and then return. The handleInterrupt method, as well as being called from a software interrupt, will also be the hook for externally triggered interrupts. It takes a value, and we can get the interrupt vector address by anding off the least significant nibble. Then we can figure out if this interrupt is unmasked by shifting a 1 to the left by interrupt vector index, and anding the result with the im register. This works by creating a mask when we shift 1 4 places to the left. When that's anded with the im register, the only value that could possibly be a 1 after this operation is the corresponding flag in the register. Any non-zero result will be cast to true by Boolean, indicating that this interrupt is indeed unmasked or enabled. If it's not unmasked, then we can simply return early, taking no further action. Next, we can calculate where the pointer to the handler is by taking the interrupt vector address and adding the interrupt vector index multiplied by 2. And we need to multiply because every address in the table is 2 bytes long. Now that we have the address in memory that the actual address of the handler is stored at, we can find the final address by reading a uint16 from the memory at the address pointer. So all that's really left to do is to save the machine state to the stack before jumping into the handler, just like we would for a subroutine. But in this machine, and indeed many real-life architectures, interrupt handlers won't nest saved state on the stack. So the state should only ever be saved when going from a normal execution context to an interrupt context. We can do this simply by checking if we're not in an interrupt handler. And if we're not, we can push a 0 to the stack and call this.pushState. The 0 here, of course, is from the calling convention of the VM and indicates that there are no arguments being passed via the stack. You can check out episode 4 of this series for more information about the stack, subroutines, and the calling convention. In any case, we'll set the isInInterrupt handler flag to true and set the instruction pointer register to the address that we got from the interrupt vector. The return from interrupt instruction is much simpler. We can add a case in the execute method switch statement, setting isInInterrupt handler to false and popping a frame off the stack. Now we have everything we need to test the interrupt mechanism. We're going to use Maxstar's IDE project again. We'll start out with an assembly language program that we can use as our test case. First, the code in the before interrupt will run, which just performs a few writes and a stack push to simulate a regular program. Then we have a software interrupt with the value of 3, referring to the 4th entry in the interrupt vector table. After the interrupt is completed, we can mask off the 4th interrupt in the IAM register. The instructions here are equivalent to the following JavaScript code, which might seem a little bit like black magic, but let's break this down to understand the pattern. We shift a 1 3 places to the left and invert all the bits of the result. This has the effect of setting every single bit to a 1 except the 4th bit, which is the interrupt that we want to mask. We then AND the result with the value in the interrupt mask register. So for every bit in the register, if there was already a 1, it will stay a 1 since 1 and 1 is 1. If it were a 0, it will stay a 0 since 1 and 0 is 0. And of course, when we get to the 4th bit, it doesn't matter what the value in the IAM register is, because anything ANDed with a 0 is always 0. So this trick can always be used to turn off or clear a particular bit in a number. After masking interrupt 3, we have another software interrupt instruction, again with 3, so in this case we would expect that the interrupt handler does not run. And finally, a literal 5 is moved into the R5 register, allowing us to see what runs instead. So we can assemble this program, which generates the machine code bytes, and then we can load these bytes at address 0. We can take this very simple interrupt handler program and load that into memory somewhere else. It doesn't do anything special, it just executes a couple of instructions and calls RTI at the end. We'll assemble this and load it at address 3000 hex. This address isn't special, anywhere would work, and you can see the code is loaded there if we go into the Run tab and change the decompiler to start at 3000. The last thing we have to do is to set up the interrupt vector at address 1000. We can do this in the loader since it's only data. We'll link our interrupt handler with the 4th place in the table, and for the first 3 addresses we'll use FFFF. If we actually tried to trigger one of these interrupts, the VM would likely crash, because there isn't actually a handler there. we can change the load address to 1000 and load it into memory. And if I page through a few times, you can see the table there at address 1000. And now that we've got the stage set, we can actually run through this program. So loading values into registers, pushing to the stack, and then interrupt 3. When we run this instruction, we see the instruction pointer change to 3000, and I can change the disassembly to show that address. In the interrupt handler, we're loading some cool numbers into registers and then XORing them before returning from the interrupt. The instruction pointer jumps back to 000E, where we start the process of masking index 3. First moving a 1 to R3, left shifting by 3, which is one of the few instructions whose result happens in place rather than going to the accumulator register. Then we invert all the bits in R3, which does end up in the accumulator, and finally ANDing with the IM register to get the new interrupt mask. It's copied back from the accumulator to the IM register, and the software interrupt is called again. But this time execution doesn't jump to the handler, but instead continues to the final move literal instruction. With interrupts in place, the VM is one feature closer to its eventual destination as a fantasy game console. If you're following along at home, you might find it an interesting challenge to try and wire up some real-world outside influences to the VM using an interrupt mechanism. Perhaps timer triggers, mouse movement, or maybe something a little more complex like a UART serial port. And if you come up with something cool, please do let me know in the comments. Thanks to all the amazing patrons of this channel. If you'd like to support these videos, you can become a patron yourself by visiting patreon.com/lowleveljavascript. $5 per video will get you the videos just a little bit earlier than everyone else, and every tier gets access to the scripts and other updates that you won't see elsewhere. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.